I'm 22 years old and I'm not in debt. And although that sounds nice, the cost for that was dropping out of college, quitting my job, spending 30 grand on courses that I had saved up for 10 years of being a child and working and not spending money, and taking a huge risk on my future. And I think it's probably a bad sign if that's what you have to do to not be in debt as a 22-year-old. That being said, I think that is somewhat what you have to do to not be in debt as a 22-year-old in America today. And so I think probably there's some skills that we need to develop as a generation so that we do not live in debt, die in debt, and pass on debt to our children. I think that's probably the sign that a society is doing something wrong. And so let's fix it. So I think our fundamental problem is that the idea of dropping out of college, quitting your job, and spending 30 grand on risky-ass internet courses is terrifying because it's risk, right? And the vast majority of us have not had to take a huge amount of risk, at least in America, to live, right? I mean, it's like if you're born into a family with like median income, you can live. You know what I mean? You don't have to take risks to get food. I think that's a good thing for some reasons, right? It's very good to be able to exist. It's good to have some kind of food safety. That's incredible. I think it's a good thing. But it's bad if we use it as a crutch. It's good if we use it as a power, but I don't think we've been trained to use it as a power, and I think we've been rewarded for using it as a crutch. Now, I'm not saying it's anyone's fault, but I do think it's our responsibility to fix it. So if you're my age or around my age or even younger, please give me a few minutes of your time. I will do my very best to give you days, weeks, months, years, and ideally more than that back. I believe the reason risk is so frightening to us is because we're not practiced in it, right? We haven't really taken risks, as I said, and so we don't really know what happens when you take them. I also think the way we generally think about them and the way we're trained to think about them, at least the way I was trained to think about them, and I'm not blaming the people who trained me to think about risk, is that the questions you ask are, how likely is this to fail? And is it going to fail? And those are stupid questions to ask, and I'll tell you why. Because a large amount of the time, the answers to both of those are, it will fail. And if you were to go based off of probability alone, you would always say it will fail, because most things fail. And that's stupid, because then you wouldn't take any risks, and the thing that makes America what it is the fact that it was built by people who are willing to risk it all for the chance of a better tomorrow. I think every good thing that has come out of America has been because of that. And so if we lose our risk, I think we're losing our Americanism. And I think that's bad. So I will share with you the way that I think about risk, because I think it's at least helped me a ton. I think it'll help you a ton too. And I think if all of our generation started thinking like this, we would be an unstoppable force of new ideals. And I think we would save the world. So first, I don't think, is this going to fail? I mean, that is a question, but the answer is always, it's very likely. So I kind of ignore it. And then I think about some other factors, like what can I do to influence the likelihood that this succeeds, right? And if those things are high, if I can do a few things to influence it, like work a ton, like have some knowledge on the area, like pay someone who knows a lot. Now, obviously that wasn't an option when I didn't have money. It was just work. It was all I had. No skill even, just work. But if there's things I can do to influence the likelihood of success, which there always are, then that makes it more appealing. And then the actual question to ask is, if I do this, and it fails, what happens? What actually happens? Break down the thing you're afraid of, because generally the things we're afraid of are just because we're too afraid to define them. Because when we define things, they become a lot less scary, right? Because you can see what they are and you can describe them. And so generally, what I am afraid of when I'm taking risks is I think it always ties back to death. Like, that's the worst case scenario for me. That is the thing I'm afraid of. But I have two, admittedly overcomes. Let's call them copercomes for this. The first one is that, at least in my opinion, I think there's a good chance that what happens when we die is it just goes all black, right? Or you live as a great practicing member of your religion or your spirituality, whatever it is, and you do your best to commit to your faith, and then on Judgment Day or whatever the equivalent is, you get sent to whatever good afterlife, right? I would say that's good. And I would say what I think, one of the things that could possibly happen, which is the black afterlife, it goes all black. It's not a race thing. That's neutral, right? That means you never knew you existed, you forget everything, and you don't exist. So the options are either neutral or good, right? Provided you don't A, believe in hell, and B, go to hell. So let's play with those options. Let's play with the neutral or good ones, right? So dying isn't that bad, because dying is either neutral, which is neutral, or good, right? So that kind of defeats that risk. Now, obviously, I don't want to die, and I don't think we should want to die. I think life is cool. And I think if my theory is right, then we had an infinite amount of time that we were not alive before being alive, and we will have an infinite amount of time after being alive that we won't be alive. And so it's probably good to enjoy the time and you know, live. And so my second Copercum is you probably won't die. Like, let's be real. Most of us can call mom and dad, or mom or dad, or dad and dad, or mom and mom, and have them fly us home, right? And if you can't do that, most of us can call a friend and say, hey, can I sleep on your couch to get back on my feet? Is there any chance you could buy me dinner for these few months or these few weeks, because I don't have any money and I risked it all and I made a mistake? We probably have someone. And really, like, when I think about it, there's a lot of people from like high school that I don't particularly like or associate with. But if they called me up and they were like, hey, I'm dying, can I sleep on your couch? There's almost no one I would say no to. You know what I mean? Like, no one's gonna say no to something like that. So if you really need it, like, if you're not addicted to drugs, it's hard to like really get that far. And so if those are my worst case scenarios, sleep on a friend's couch or go home, or stop existing entirely and and never know it existed, risk isn't that scary, right? And so then what's the other thing we're afraid of? We're afraid of losing money. My question is why, right? Because obviously if you go to zero, yeah, that's fair. But even so, call a friend. And if you don't go to zero, what are you afraid of? Like, you have to live a little cheaper for a few months? And I mean, maybe you have people who depend on you. That definitely does change it. And probably it's wise to keep a bigger reserve, but this is specifically targeted to the people who don't have that. This is targeted to the people like me. I would say I don't have a lot. I mean, like, I have an audience. I have more now than I did years ago, but I don't have a family. I don't have a lot of money. I mean, I have like 5 figures in the bank. I don't have a lot to lose, and I would assume if you've gotten this far, you don't either. And I think we need to realize what that means. Because that means we can be the most dangerous person in the room. That means we can be the person who's willing to do more than everyone else, who's willing to sacrifice more than everybody else. Because when we're sacrificing everything, we're sacrificing nothing. And they're sacrificing everything is sacrificing a lot. And so the ways I think we should think about risk are that A, it's maybe not even real. B, it's not that bad. And C, not will it work, but will I be okay if it doesn't? Or what is the actual worst case scenario if it doesn't? And I think if we think about risk that way, at least when I do, life becomes a lot easier and I become a lot less afraid of taking risks. It's like last year I lost 130 grand on risks, on bets, on people, on, well, a product that didn't work out, on crypto. I only lost 10 grand on crypto, but I did lose money on crypto. And you know, based on this reaction, it would make sense that wasn't a lot of money for me, but it was a lot of money for me. Like, after all of that, after all the money I made last year, and all of those risks, and then also the not risk costs, I walked away with 20 grand. Like, after I paid for rent and food, 20 grand for 5,000 hours of work. And really 15, because that's all the money I didn't make money before last year, and I did 10,000 hours of work on this before then. So it was a lot of money to me. But I think we need to realize that you won't die. And on that note, I have a dear friend who lost 8 figures in a week, or maybe 2 weeks. 8 figures, that is tens of millions of dollars. Like mid 8 figures, not 10 million, mid 8 figures. And he's fine. Now, obviously we don't all have 8 figures, but that also means we don't have 8 figures to lose, right? Now, would his life probably be a little richer if he had those 8 figures? Yes. I'm not saying he didn't lose anything, But I'm saying you can lose that and you can be okay if you have it, right? And so if you have nothing to lose. And so you can lose everything and you'll probably be pretty okay. And so his story and my experience of last year have really made me less averse to risk. And I think if we all had that, our generation would be far better suited to move forward in the world and to change it in the way that we see fit. And so my ask to you, if you've gotten this far, is please take a bet on yourself and save up, like really save up. And then take a chunk. Like take a chunk of that. If however much you need, however much leaves you with enough to be okay in the bank, right? If that's $5,000, if that's $10,000, if that's $20,000, if that's $1,000, keep that. That's your safety fund. And then take a chunk that's big enough that it scares you. $5,000, $10,000, $2,000, I don't know, something that's out of your comfort zone. And whether it is buying a course on a skill from someone who seems reputable, or I'm gonna be real, don't put that shit on crypto and don't day trade. Like, take a bet that you'll learn something from, right? Whether it's trying to develop a product, whether it is trying to learn how to run ads, whatever it is. I'd put it towards a skill that feels risky because the benefits are you realize you didn't die, or you succeed. You probably won't the first time, let's be real, you're gonna fail, that's the game. You learn something, you either get better risk aversion, or you either strengthen your risk tolerance, or you strengthen your pain tolerance, usually both, or you do it and you learn something. Game changer. My point is, it's pretty hard to lose in this world. It's pretty hard to really lose. Especially because when you die, it's like, if you're religious, if you were good, if you were faithful, you're chilling, and if you're not religious, then nothing happens. And it's just over. And so I think if we all thought like that, we'd be better off. So that's my ask. Thank you very much for listening and have a wonderful rest of your day.